We're living in a digital world, but only 0.3% of professionals know how to program, how to code. How can we keep going with only 0.3% doing the development work to create everything that the other 99.7% of professionals will need to use in their work? Recently, a group of companies has started to challenge this status quo. These companies are building what have become known as no-code solutions, or no-code tools that allow non-technical people to create digital products. In this series of videos, we're going to talk to some of the people behind these companies. These are some of the movers and the shakers that are helping to push forward the no-code movement. Hello, everybody. Today we are receiving here Marian Hakobyan, is the founder of Softr.io. Softr, I think that is what you actually call the company. Softr.io is the internet domain. Thanks, Marian, for taking the time to join us. And I think we should start by asking you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got the idea, you came about starting Softr.
Yeah, thank you for inviting. Really pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot. Of course, so my co-founder's background is in product and tech. So both of us have been working as software engineers for more than a decade. And we have just worked in every other company we worked for. We just kept repeating the same code every now and then. So in every other company, we kept building the same things over and over. And then on the other hand, in the last 5 to 6 years, we have mainly been in leadership roles, hiring engineers and product people for our departments. And then also one trend we noticed, which I guess everyone knows by now, is that there is just, it's just too much scarcity of engineering talent. And one thing that we know for sure is that everyone is not going to become engineers, right? Everyone is not going to learn how to code. So that's where the idea really came of why do we keep repeating so much in every other company? And instead we thought, why not to have a platform where all of these repetitive components are offered as building blocks out of the box in the platform. And then companies or individuals can just build what's unique to their business or their specific needs. So that's how we really started Softr in the first place.
Great. And what makes Softr a different solution, and what makes Softr right now in accordance to what you just told us? Tell us a little bit about the product and how it works.
Yeah, of course. So we did lots of, basically, we spent quite some time in the space and try to understand how the problem is solved by the existing tools. And the gap that we really noticed in the market was basically lots of the tools, especially the tools that have existed already for quite some time, they are pretty basic and they allow you building static websites. Like companies like Wix, Squarespace, they do a great job, but then you only get static websites up and running. And then on the other hand, there are tools like Bubble, which are really powerful, and you can really build complex applications, but they are really, really technical and very, very much oriented for people who at least understand these technical concepts. And really the gap which we saw in order for the broader audience to adopt the no-code, no-code saying in a meaning that people able to build applications, able to build software. For us, we feel that the tools have to be really, really simple, however, still allowing to build powerful applications. And that's really what our mission is. Our goal is long-term. We are right now building Softr, which is a no-code platform that allows you building websites and web apps on top of Airtable. But long-term, Airtable is basically just a start, just one use case. And then long-term, either it's Google Sheets or Notion or any other type of database, whether it's hosted on Softr or your own within company, anyone really without technical background should be able to build software products on Softr. And in terms of product, the biggest kind of difference is that one thing that we have figured out is in order to really keep things simple and to not put technical concepts into the kind of game of building software, one thing that really we wanted to have from the very core is limitation, which might sound a bit controversial, but the thing is that if people get all the options and they can do anything, they just end up doing nothing, or they just are too confused and they can't do not know how to go about it, because most of the people, as you can imagine, are either non-designers or non-engineers, right? And it's really, really hard for them to build something which looks good at the same time also being powerful. So basically in Softr, there is a right balance between ease of use and flexibility. So we do give quite a lot of flexibility and power to the users to design custom designed application. However, there are also some limitations, because we use this building block concept. As an example, if you want to have login, sign in, sign up functionality, it's just different layouts and different building blocks that are offered to you. You just drag and drop the login box. You can customize it as you like, but every other application has the same login box, right? It's the same. There is just email, there is password, and then you log in. So that is something we offer pre-built. And like that, you get things out of the box. You don't build the entire sign-in box from scratch, element by element. So that's the kind of core concept in Softr. And actually, Product Hunt described us, when we launched on Product Hunt, they described us the Lego of web app building. And the concept is really similar. So we rather offer the Lego bricks, and then people can build any type of Lego they want on top of Softr.
When you said right at the start that in every one of the last companies that you worked at, you built the same things. This really resonates with me, because I used to lead the architecture department for the largest software company here in Brazil. And we were the results of the acquisition of tens of companies, which meant that inside the company, we had the same thing dozens of times, done by different people in different ways, but doing the same stuff. It was actually the job of my department to seek for the common path that we would use to bring all that stuff together in a coherent fashion, in a coherent architecture, which would allow us to reduce the overhead work of maintaining dozens of different source codes, which did in the end the exact same thing, which was, as you say, authenticate the user, that kind of thing.
Payments, like messaging, like all of them is just the same thing, right?
And you have the things like, for example, text code, text support code, that whenever there is a change in that, you are required to immediately change in all business software. So that, again, becomes an example of how it is difficult for a company to maintain lots of different copies of the same kind of thing. And I guess that is something which, going into the text software, that's something not you can't really have as a building block, as it's different everywhere. And in many countries, such as, for example, Brazil, where we are based, it is different per state. So it gets to be very unruly. But I would venture to say that having a tool that takes a lot of the other work out of the way for you, it leaves you more time to deal with these issues that aren't so easy for you to pre-package. But then it brings us to the question is, do you have any long-term plans on having these kinds of blocks provided by other companies, or like third-party blocks that you can plug into your to your tool and add to the toolbox of your users?
Yes, so long-term, that might be the case as well. So right now we're not focused on that, because there are just so many other use cases which are still repetitive, which can be covered by, which are really common and can be even counted how many are those and covered by Softr. So 80% of all the functionality, I would say, is repetitive. So it's really the 80-20% of the rule. Can you achieve the 80% results by just having the 20% code just put on top of that as a custom code? So long term, that might be the case. Short term, we actually right now have custom code blocks which allow you customizing the front end and the current web app or websites that you are building. It's not exactly the plugins, but long term we will definitely have a way for people externally building on top of Softr if they have two custom use cases. However, the short term, the way we think about it is we are not necessarily focusing on the companies who, we are not saying that as the company grows, has several thousands of users, their platform, their core product is going to be built on no-code tools. I don't believe that's going to happen sometime soon, because the use cases, just the business use cases, are so many that it just doesn't make sense. Also from a cost perspective, it doesn't make sense for a company to run on no-code tools. However, alongside the core product, there are so many lightweight use cases, and there are so many additional kind of use cases within other departments, or even for individuals, like just starting out their businesses, building simple applications. Those are there are so many use cases like that. That is what we believe, that the no-code tools should be really good to build at. And yeah, long term, as the company grows, they would potentially be able to scale on Softr. But then the question is if that's really becoming more cost effective for them, if that makes sense for them from a business perspective.
One thing that caught my attention, you told us that you identified an opportunity because of lack of talent and repetitive tasks. So people, of course, all companies doing almost the same thing in a different way, depending on talents and using maybe different technologies, but at the end doing the same. That's a great opportunity. Why did you think that no code was the solution for this? Why not trying to create a tool for maybe developers to make them more productive? Or what is the idea that you had in terms of, I'm going to create a tool that will make non-technical people powerful enough to create these things that they need at the end, but how this solution can maybe work or integrate with the other things that technical people can do? Because depending on the size of the company, of course, you are going to have people using Softr as a tool for accelerate their ideas, their business necessities, but maybe this kind of solution will one day or the other try to integrate with the other things that the company has already done, because maybe they have legacy systems or other kinds of necessities that Softr can be a Lego part of another Lego construction, more complicated or complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. That can happen in the future, but right now that's not really our goal. So our goal, one thing we noticed in the market and generally within, tech is moving so much faster than the education and skills in actually technology, right? People are not, it's not easy to become an engineer. And also there is so much shortage of engineers. And the bigger mission for us is to enable as many people as possible to be able to create software. And what we notice is, especially in today's generation, most of the people are so entrepreneurial. They are starting their own businesses. And I mean, in 5-10 years, what we believe is there's just going to be millions of people who are going to have their own projects, their own businesses to run, and they might not potentially be working full-time in companies. And kind of the future of work for what we think is going to look different. And in that kind of world, we want to empower more and more creators, more and more makers, just be able to start their own businesses. And that's really where where the idea comes from first, whether those people are outside individuals or internal within companies. Still, if they have an idea, instead of just waiting for the engineering department to build it for them, which usually doesn't ends up not happening because the engineering resources are really scarce, and they usually are spent on the core product. They could just go ahead, use these tools, and whether it's automating their processes, whether it's building something for their own team or their own customers, they can just go ahead and do that. So that's really the focus right now we have for Softr. Long term, we are open to also explore possibilities of integrating with existing data sources, like the company has a data source, they have an API, and then we could integrate with that as well. However, yeah, that's not the short-term focus, and that potentially might be just a follow-up next step.
I guess from what you're describing resonates a lot with some of the thinking that we've done on the use of no-code tools. We have this notion that in the not too distant future, creating an application or website should be very similar to how you use a PowerPoint presentation today. In a very long time ago, which is only remembered by people who lack hair or have gray hair, people didn't know how to create presentations. They would actually ask somebody else to do it for them. Or even before that, there were these like plastic things that you would draw on, plastic sheets you would draw on, and then you use this machine to project the image onto a wall. Really prehistoric times. But people aren't really naturally good at drawing. So again, there were lots of people that didn't really create all their transparencies, I think that was what they were called. And they actually asked somebody else to do it for them, or to print it out on the plastic sheets. But today, everybody can use PowerPoint or Google Slides or OpenOffice, LibreOffice. You got your pick, but just about everybody can use it and do a pretty decent presentation, at least starting out from one of the pre-made templates that these things have. And from the way we look at it is that it's just such a natural thing now for you to need to have some piece of software to get any kind of business working, that it's just kind of unimaginable that you couldn't start your business because you don't know how to do this. And the statistics that we have say that only 0.3% of professionals in the world know how to code. So it is obviously something which is at odds with the reality in which we live now, which is that we are more and more a species that relates to each other digitally, especially with this pandemic thing from 2020. So there is just an enormous amount of demand and an enormous lack of people to take up that demand. So it just seems that it must become a natural skill that people in general have. And that's pretty much how we see no-code tools coming into play in general, is that you should be able to accomplish enough to get your business running. But if your business is creating presentations, for example, it's not enough that you just know how to use PowerPoint. You need more technique, and you need more design blocks, that kind of thing. So is that pretty much how you see software coming into play in general, as something that empowers these people, that fills this gap?
Yeah, exactly. So you described it really nicely and almost very close to what we like to say. regarding software, where we see software in 5 to 10 years. So as you described, like most of the people right now in the business world, they know Excel, right? One thing we believe is in 5 years' time, we're going to see most of the people maybe not replacing, but having a no-code tool as one of their skills, as part of their skills in their resumes or CVs, if there is CVs by five years. But yeah, definitely we do see that no-code tools are becoming kind of the default skill that everyone in today's world has to know to some extent, right? Airtable, Notion, Zapier, and all of these tools are mostly in today's modern technology companies. They're a must, because you just can't do everything manual, and most of the things, most of the processes are already being automated by these kinds of tools. However, also in about in 5 years or so, we believe that the actual product building or web app building tools are going to become as a default skill as well.
Yeah, great. One thing, how long is software on the market right now? And if you have use cases that call your attention, that people solve the problem using software, can you tell us at least one example of a solution that is very interesting for you in terms of what you imagine people would be using software, and at the end, wow, they did something that called your attention very much?
Yeah, we have so many of those kinds of use cases. It's mostly around kind of design and the idea around platform, but yes, there are lots of these kinds of use cases. So yeah, in short, basically with software currently, there are several kind of patterns and use cases that people are usually building. So people are, as we just recently, so we launched software in end of August. In Product Hunt, we became #1 product of the day. At first, software was just a website builder. That was kind of our MVP we started with. And then from October on, it's also a web. It has all the web app functionality. And now we also support memberships and kind of filtering, etc., which does allow users to build quite powerful applications. So usually the types of these applications are marketplaces, simple e-commerce sites, online communities with memberships, online paid courses, and client portals, and also job boards, which is kind of the hello world of no-code, free no-code tool. Yeah, so these use cases are pretty much also consumer facing, and they're really design wise very, very different. One thing that we really got where we were surprised by doing what customers can do with our existing given Lego bricks. So we thought we have some layouts that we usually offer for building blocks as building blocks, but then in the end, when you look at the result of what people have built, it's incredible, because people are really creative. They can use the blocks that you offer, and they build something when you have a look, and then you're really wondering if this has been built on software. This happens every now and then. But yes, so these are the main use cases that we see people building, and those are most of the time, because we offer a lot of customization and really nicely designed applications, which also by default look, they're responsive and look really nice on tablet and mobile. So mostly these applications are used with external customers as well. So people are able to log in, have access to some gated content, they're able to buy courses, and then just have access when they log in within the community to discuss courses, etc. Yeah.
So these are actually, as you said, very interesting cases, as they are actually cases for building businesses.
Exactly.
They're actually moving a bit further than what I think you previously described as, like, for example, these like peripheral support applications, which I think is a lot of what we're going to see as a tendency. As you said, people are very creative, and when you give them powerful tools, they tend to see less limits than perhaps the people that, especially people who had no technical background, and therefore they have very little idea of what goes on under the hood. It is, from what we've seen, very it's very hard for them to think that they're not really just about to build the next Facebook, which is
usually people do not
funny.
think with technical terms, right? They don't think I have this blog or I have this functionality. They rather think I want to build this business, I want to build this application, and they just start building. They will find a solution depending on what you offer, but mostly they will figure out some ways to get the result they want. Yeah, and you're right. So usually people people are more creative than it seems, and most of the people are also very entrepreneurial. The ones especially who want to start a business, they also not necessarily are looking for the perfect solution, right? They want to start with something, I mean, because otherwise the alternative for them is until recently, until these tools are out there, they just weren't able to do anything, right? And now it just gives them so much superpowers that they are able to build the idea they had in mind. So they just start they just start building something, validating, and then iterating on it as they go.
Sorry. It's interesting what you just told us, and one thing that I also want to discuss a little bit more is you told that when you created software, there are some limitations. So you put on the tool some limitations, but it's not because it's limited the thing that you can create. You are limiting power because you understand that at the end, those extra power will require more understanding or more knowledge of technical things that usually can make things more complicated. And I agree completely that when you give any kind of tool that serves for everything, at the end serves for nothing, because it's quite complicated at the moment that you have too many options to choose. At the end, people got stuck and say, okay, I can do anything, so at the end I will do nothing. But tell us a little bit how these kinds of limitations is helping people that is really no technical to jump into this movement, because this is something very interesting in terms that when people can't see the limitations at the first moment, this can be something that really pushes them to move forward faster, because they do not find these technical things that for maybe technical people like us understand quite well, but for them it's really, really complicated. This can make this kind of situation gives them power to say, okay, even someone like me that do not understand anything about technical things can create something very powerful without dealing in the end with technical things that I should understand before doing the solution, before creating the things. So tell us a little bit how this is helping software move faster in the place or in the arena of no code where you are playing on.
Yeah, exactly. So the main concept is really behind building blocks. So the way it works in Softr, for when you want to build a website or a web app, there are very kind of typical blocks that you might use, right? There is a header. If you're building a website, there is a header, a hero section, or theme section, which like 99% of the websites have. So it's up to you. So then we offer for each type of building block, we offer different layouts, which still can be customized, but the limitations come mainly around, let's say, if you are building a CTA block, you can't just take the button and move it around in the page as you like, which most of the other platforms allow you to just do one element by element, right? To put the element wherever you want. And also, honestly, 90-something% of our users just don't want to do that. And they are so happy that they have these limitations because they just can't break it, right? The platform itself doesn't allow breaking it. And by doing that, it also makes it really automatically responsive. That's also then working really nice on other platforms. So really what people, if we think from a more business perspective and from more non-technical perspective, if someone has a business idea, if someone wants to build a web app, they're not thinking, I want this button to be here or somewhere else. They're rather thinking, how should I solve this problem, right? What type of application I make, what type of how should the product work, instead of the technical details. And that's what they want to get out, get beautiful, nice looking web application up and running really quickly. And that's what they basically are able to do in Softr really quickly. And also some other example for pre-built things is like if you are building a pricing section or you want to integrate authentication. Again, the user login, sign in, sign up component. So that is a component in our case, or the pricing or Stripe configuration is just a component. You just drag and drop, because that's the same in every other application, right? You might have different colors, you might have different backgrounds, or maybe 2-3 different fields, but most of the time it's the same thing in every other application. So those are the layouts, the fixed layouts that we offer, still with customization, but then some limitations, and that makes the work really, really quick and fast, because lots of these things are basically done in the platform out of the box and kind of already calculated and built internally.
Marian, I guess that there's something really nice to be said about, in a way, about having things done in a standard way, because as you said, these things are pretty much the same everywhere you go. And if they're not, it can actually become a problem. Like if you're used to doing your checkout in, Amazon or whatever other store, and somebody comes up with this very different layout for doing that kind of thing, it might not really be helpful, even though it might look pretty.
Exactly, right? Exactly. That's exactly right. And most of the time, people are not designers, and they're also really good design standards, right? We do definitely follow the design standards. We do want to make sure that everything you build is following the best practices. However, if something is really just outside that box and is really, really custom, then probably Softr wouldn't be a good solution for you. But especially looking at the audience that we are targeting, 99% or something is basically they just want to have best practice, really great and nice looking solution, which is what we offer.
Marian, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us. It's really been an interesting conversation. Alexandro, if you like to add a question.
Yeah. I just want to add a final question. Sorry, Marian. I just read that you got a new round of investments. So just to wrap up all this conversation, what can we expect for the future of Softr?
Yeah, of course. So basically, we are at the stage now. We have several thousands of customers, already revenues, and basically the round, which is the first financing round for us, is going to help us to expand our team and to develop even more powerful functionality for Softr. So it can cover even more use cases than we currently do for our customers.
That was a really important point to touch on, though, and I had slipped my mind to place the question there, but it is an interesting development to see that not only Softr but several companies in this no-code space are getting more funding, and that we can expect to see even better tools coming up in the next couple of years, right? It's a nice development to see that companies such as yours has already found the funding needed to expand, and that you already are planning on how to go forward from that. And I'm sure that we're going to be talking again in the not too distant future and discussing a bit of what you're doing with the funding that you got.
Yeah, sure, happy to. Well, the demand is there, right? There is not enough engineers. That's for a fact. That's a problem. And then there's the absolutely need for any type of software that helps non-technical people to build software products, right? That is a fact. And we are hoping that we will be at a good stage also in probably 10 years. We can have another conversation latest. But we hope that Softr can become the tool that people can also have as part of their CVs as a skill that they have. And whether it's individual use cases or business use cases, they would be able to really, without any technical background, really is build any application on Softr.
So thank you so much for taking your time to have this conversation with us. Congratulations for what you have done until today, and keep going. We hope you
thank you.
Be very successful.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the invite as well.
Be sure that you're not going to slip us for 10 years.
For sure.
Right.
Thank you very much.